National Electrical Code, or NEC, sets forth specific requirements for the installation of electrical equipment in hazardous locations, such as those near gasoline dispensing pumps. These regulations are designed to minimize the risk of fire and explosion. One critical aspect of these regulations is the minimum height requirement for receptacle outlets installed near dispensers. According to NEC Article 514.8 B5, receptacle outlets installed near dispensers must be located not less than 5 feet, which is equivalent to 1.5 meters, vertically above the platform or driveway level. This requirement is in place to prevent the receptacles from being exposed to flammable vapors that may accumulate near the ground. The reason for this minimum height requirement stems from the properties of gasoline vapors. These vapors are heavier than air and tend to settle near the ground. If a receptacle outlet is installed too close to the ground, it could potentially come into contact with these vapors, creating a hazardous situation. Any spark or electrical arc from the receptacle could ignite the vapors, leading to a fire or explosion. By elevating the receptacles to a height of 5 feet, the NEC aims to keep them safely above the level where flammable vapors are likely to concentrate. Now let's delve into the specific requirements outlined in NEC Article 514.8 B5. This article states that receptacle outlets installed near dispensers shall be not less than 5 feet vertically above the platform or driveway level. This means that the bottom of the receptacle enclosure must be at least 5 feet above the surface of the platform or driveway. It is important to note that this is a minimum requirement. There is no prohibition against installing the receptacles at a high level if desired or necessary. However, the receptacles must never be installed below the 5-foot minimum. In addition to the height requirement, the NEC also addresses the need for receptacles installed in outdoor locations to be suitable for wet locations. NEC Article 514.10 B states that receptacle outlets installed in an outdoor location not protected from the weather shall be listed for wet locations. This means that the receptacles must be specifically designed and rated to withstand exposure to rain, snow, and other forms of moisture. Receptacles listed for wet locations typically have features such as weatherproof covers and seals to prevent water from entering the electrical components. This helps to prevent corrosion, short circuits, and other electrical hazards. When selecting receptacles for installation near gasoline dispensers, it is crucial to ensure that they meet both the height and wet location requirements of the NEC. This will help to ensure the safety of the installation and minimize the risk of electrical hazards. To further clarify the requirements for receptacle installation near gas pumps, let's consider some practical examples. Imagine a gasoline station with a concrete platform surrounding the fuel dispensers. According to the NEC, any receptacle outlets installed on this platform must be at least 5 feet above the surface of the concrete. This could be achieved by mounting the receptacles on poles or pedestals that are tall enough to meet the height requirement. In another scenario, suppose a gasoline station has a canopy over the fuel dispensers. In this case, the receptacles could be mounted on the canopy supports, provided that they are still at least 5 feet above the platform or driveway level. Additionally, the receptacles must be listed for wet locations, as they are still exposed to the outdoor environment. It is important to remember that the NEC is a comprehensive document that covers a wide range of electrical safety topics. The specific requirements for receptacle installation near gas pumps are just one small part of the overall code. Electricians and other qualified professionals should always consult the latest edition of the NEC to ensure that they are following all applicable regulations. In addition to the NEC, there may be other local or state codes that apply to electrical installations near gas pumps. It is important to check with the local authorities to determine if there are any additional requirements that must be met. Failing to comply with the NEC or other applicable codes can result in fines, penalties, and even legal action. Moreover, it can create a dangerous situation that could lead to fire, explosion, or other hazards. Therefore, it is essential to take the time to understand and follow all relevant regulations. Now let's delve deeper into the technical aspects of receptacle installation near gas pumps. When selecting receptacles for this application, it is important to consider the voltage and amperage requirements of the equipment that will be plugged into them. The receptacles must be rated for the appropriate voltage and amperage to ensure safe and reliable operation. For example, if the receptacles will be used to power fuel pumps, they must be rated for the voltage and amperage required by the pumps. Overloading a receptacle can cause it to overheat, which can lead to a fire. In addition to the voltage and amperage rating, the receptacles must also be of the appropriate type for the application. There are many different types of receptacles available, each designed for specific purposes. For example, there are receptacles designed for use with standard electrical plugs, as well as receptacles designed for use with locking plugs. Locking plugs are often used in hazardous locations to prevent accidental disconnection of the equipment. When installing receptacles near gas pumps, it is important to follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully. The instructions will provide detailed information on how to properly install the receptacles, including how to make the electrical connections and how to secure the receptacles to the mounting surface. It is also important to use the correct tools and materials for the job. Using the wrong tools or materials can damage the receptacles or create a safety hazard. For example, using the wrong type of wire connector can lead to a loose connection, which can cause the receptacle to overheat. After the receptacles have been installed, it is important to test them to ensure that they are working properly. This can be done using a multimeter or other electrical testing equipment. The test should verify that the receptacles are providing the correct voltage and that there are no short circuits or ground faults. If any problems are found, they should be corrected immediately. In addition to the initial testing, it is important to perform regular inspections of the receptacles to ensure that they are still in good condition. The inspection should look for signs of damage, such as cracks, broken covers, or loose wires. Any damaged receptacle should be replaced immediately. It is also important to keep the receptacles clean and free of debris. Dirt and grime can accumulate on the receptacles and interfere with their operation. The receptacle should be cleaned regularly with a damp cloth. Do not use any harsh chemicals or abrasive cleaners, as these can damage the receptacles. Now let's talk about the specific requirements for wiring and grounding receptacles near gas pumps. The NEC requires that all electrical equipment in hazardous locations be properly grounded to prevent electrical shock hazards. Grounding provides a path for fault current to flow back to the source, which will trip a circuit breaker or fuse and energize the circuit. The grounding conductor must be sized according to the NEC tables and must be properly connected to the grounding electrode system. In addition to grounding, the NEC also requires that all wiring in hazardous locations be installed in conduit. Conduit is a rigid metal or plastic tubing that protects the wires from damage and prevents them from coming into contact with flammable vapors. The conduit must be properly sealed to prevent vapors from entering the electrical system. There are different types of conduit available, each designed for specific applications. For example, rigid metal conduit is typically used in areas where there is a risk of physical damage to the conduit. Flexible metal conduit is often used in areas where the conduit needs to be bent or flexed. The NEC also specifies the type of wiring that can be used in hazardous locations. The wiring must be specifically listed for use in hazardous locations and must be installed in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. The wiring must be resistant to chemicals and moisture and must be able to withstand the high temperatures that can occur in hazardous locations. When installing wiring in conduit, it is important to use the correct fittings and connectors. The fittings and connectors must be specifically designed for use with conduit and must be properly tightened to ensure a secure connection. It is also important to avoid overfilling the conduit with wires. Overfilling the conduit can make it difficult to pull the wires and can damage the insulation on the wires. The NEC specifies the maximum number of wires that can be installed in a given size of conduit. Now, let's discuss the importance of proper labeling and signage for receptacles near gas pumps. The NEC requires that all electrical equipment in hazardous locations be properly labeled to identify its purpose and voltage. This helps to prevent accidental contact with energized equipment and to ensure that the equipment is used properly. The labels must be durable and weather resistant and must be clearly visible. In addition to labeling the electrical equipment, it is also important to provide appropriate signage in the area. The signage should warn of the potential hazards and should provide instructions on how to operate the equipment safely. For example, the signage might warn of the risk of fire or explosion and might instruct users to turn off the equipment before refueling. The signage should be placed in a location where it is easily visible to all personnel. It is also important to ensure that the signage is kept clean and free of debris. The NEC also requires that all electrical equipment in hazardous locations be inspected and maintained regularly. This helps to identify and correct any potential problems before they can lead to a safety hazard. The inspection should be performed by qualified personnel who are familiar with the NEC requirements for hazardous locations. The inspection should include a visual examination of the equipment, as well as electrical testing to verify that the equipment is functioning properly. Any problems that are found should be corrected immediately. In addition to the regular inspections, it is also important to perform preventive maintenance on the equipment. Preventive maintenance includes tasks such as cleaning the equipment, lubricating moving parts, and tightening connections. Preventive maintenance helps to extend the life of the equipment and to prevent breakdowns. When performing maintenance on electrical equipment in hazardous locations, it is important to follow all safety precautions. The equipment should be de-energized before any work is performed, and the area should be properly ventilated to remove any flammable vapors. It is also important to use the correct tools and materials for the job. Using the wrong tools or materials can damage the equipment or create a safety hazard. In summary, the minimum height requirement for receptacle outlets near gasoline dispensers is 5 feet vertically above the platform or driveway level. This requirement is outlined in NEC Article 514.8.5. Additionally, NEC Article 514.10b requires that receptacle outlets installed in outdoor locations not protected from the weather be listed for wet locations. These regulations are in place to minimize the risk of fire and explosion and to ensure the safety of electrical installations in hazardous locations. It is crucial to adhere to these codes and guidelines for the safety of personnel and property.